There we go. All right. Recording. I'm just going to talk a little just to see how it sounds. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This is Turner Family Band Shares. Me and Jose are here. We're going to explain a little of how he plays the drums. We're going to start out by asking some questions just to see, how does he play? How did he start playing? Who is his greatest influences? Things like that. Because, as a drummer, I'm not a terrific drummer myself, but I do know that as a drummer, sometimes you learn things through other influences and you have your own style. And sometimes you just all of a sudden you play something and it's right there, and then you're like, I got to use that again. And eventually it's another part of your natural style that you can just kind of pull out of the bag. I know that a lot of times that comes with playing with other musicians. You can all of a sudden hit a fill you've never hit in your life,
right?
Because that person is working with you and off of you, and it's a great thing to be able to play music with other people that can listen and work with you on that. And me and Jose have a great relationship.
Yes, we do.
As family, but also when it comes to music, the bass player and the drummer have a amazing relationship.
That's always
it
always
totally
there.
clicks.
It has to.
I was at a youth camp, and I was talking to possibly, I don't want to say this out of hand, possibly the greatest bass player and drummer I had heard up to that point a couple of weeks ago. And what they said is, I was like, they're so good. Every service was just like, it got better and better.
Yeah.
He started off playing some crazy fills, the drummer, and then he started playing the same fill with triplets at the end, and you're like, you just added that? And the thing they said, the bassist and the drummer, they said to each other, was like, no, he makes it easy. And the other guy said, no, you make it easy. It's just how it works.
We rely on the other person to make the music.
I was just in a church service with that same drummer, and service happened to work out. He happened to play the drums, and I was playing bass. What a blessing for me. I just, I was just right there. I was trying to do my best to think musically and just, also worship the Lord, because that's what you're doing it for.
Right, exactly.
But there's times where if the music's good, you are way more inclined to say, thank the Lord, than if you're trying to figure out what's going on up there. Mm-hmm. And, it was going really good, and there was a moment where the piano kind of was quieter. The preacher started talking. Mm-hmm. The drummer, Brother Anthony Swafford, amazing preacher, amazing drummer, and he is so humble about both of those, you'd never know it if he didn't play. And he only played one night out of that 2 weeks that I was in that revival. He was playing constant hi-hat, kick drum.
Okay.
And I was like, what do I do with that? Do I play? And so I just started playing one note, or, a couple, just dun, 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 just a groove.
Yeah.
I do the same thing 3 times, for 3 bars, play something a little different on the 4th. Mm-hmm. Then he didn't switch up. He hit a little fill on the 4th bar, kept playing the exact same groove. So I was like, he's not changing.
Like in pocket.
He's in the pocket.
Right.
The preacher's up there exhorting. So I had to change something. So after that, I shifted it a little bit. So I shifted the groove around, played something a little different in a different spot. 3 times the same, 4th time a little fill. Same thing. He's playing in the pocket. He didn't need to do anything, because that spoke louder than anything he could play. He was just going. And after the service, it got real. Then preacher starts getting a little fierier. He's going off it. We're amening in the back. Everybody's amening in the church. And then
he hits a loud spit.
He hits the crashes, starts coming in on a full beat. Starts bringing that snare drum in there. Uh-huh. Same thing. Instead of getting more excited, tighten up. He's playing the beat. I'm starting to play just root notes. It just
so he stayed in the pocket the whole time.
Yes.
Right.
And what I love about drum and bass, and I've played with a lot of drummers, I've heard a lot of bass players, I've always played a kind of like very precise style of just very quick notes, and it helps to have a drummer that is super on time and tight.
Right.
Because then you have if you want to play the smallest, just tick, 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 and just do texture and like just the rhythms. Mm-hmm. If the drummer's all over the place, you can't do that. You can't do that. You have to keep it going. There's the problem, when drummers are pulling back because they can't play fast enough, or they're slowing down. And I have to kind of play louder and just try to hit that beat. Yeah, you just try to hit that beat so they hear it. You're like, come on, you're nodding your head as hard as you can, trying to get the beat is here, is here, and the truth is, and I hope I don't talk too much over you, but just kind of sharing the things that I hear as somebody who's trying to listen to the drummer, and again, I get better at that the more that I play. When I first started, I didn't know what was going on. I was just playing for myself. But when you listen to people, it's just like when the drummer is super tight and precise and they're always on time, then the bass player has the liberty to play, just consistent, play to the chord changes. And I'm probably going to talk about that some when it comes to the bass lessons that I will give, of just sticking to the chords, the roots of the chords, and just playing C, G, A. I can do that all I want. If the drummer's tight, I can play on the offbeat.
Mm-hmm.
I can play on any note I want to.
Right.
Because you feel the drums. They never change. They're not going anywhere. It's on the beat.
Yep.
And even if nobody's playing, if you're not playing, I keep the root note going. I keep that beat one is so important to feel where you're at. Keep that going. And then outside of that, if there's a fill I want to throw in, anything, if the drummer's consistent and everybody's on time, go for it.
Challenge to me, you need the drummer to be consistent with the timing and always stay right there on direct.
And outside of that, you can throw in whatever fills you want if you are confident.
As long as 1 and 3 stay in the same spot.
If you're throwing in a fill, because I know you and me will go sometimes back to back on fills, and we're just playing the same kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing a fill, I'm playing a fill.
Right.
It works together if we're both in time. We don't have to hit the same rhythm. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. It would be cool sometimes if we could write out a fill that we do, where like some super unison line that everybody does. But the truth is that all you hear is that it's in time. And if both of us are in time during that fill, then everybody else is going to stay in time during that fill.
Right.
And I know from playing drums that, we don't use a click track. We don't do any of that kind of stuff. It's very, very much, just playing by ear. But I know
by feel.
By feel a lot of it.
When you play the drums, you mostly play by feel.
Yes.
Not mostly, but I feel like, when you're playing piano, like Mama's doing or Sister D's doing the piano lessons, she's doing those and she's talking about playing by ear because she knows she can hear the music and she can play it by the keys. Whereas a drummer like me would be playing the music and be playing by feel. I can feel where she's going with that note, with that rise in the chromatic or how she's going.
Sure.
I can feel it where she's gonna go low, and I can feel that where she's gonna slow down, or where she's gonna get into one of those building, style of the song, and you get into there and you start slamming those cymbals, and you get to getting the church riled up, and it's just like the Lord is really like leading you into worshiping. That's how I feel.
Well, I was in a practice, and it's so true what you said about my feel. There are things that you feel the moment, and we were doing a practice for this youth revival coming up, and at one point everybody stopped playing.
Right.
We didn't practice it. We didn't look at each other. There was nothing. There's a drummer, guitar, piano, me. Mm-hmm. All of us silent for a measure. Just. And it looked like it was playing. It wasn't
like no music at all.
No, nothing. The singers were still there. But
singing?
They were singing. I think they had taken a break for that moment or something, or we were just trying to get the chords or something.
Right.
We were just kind of feeling it, and then all of a sudden, everybody stopped playing for a second, and then we all came back in. And it was so shocking. It's like I've had moments as a bass player where I realize that I play something right with the drummer.
Uh-huh.
And just look over and
and you're like, I felt that.
I caught that. They go into triplets, and you go into triplets, and you do that same kind of feeling. You're like, oh, we caught that. We got it. We're in sync. There's times where as a drummer, we're so in sync with the bass, or vice versa. There's things that you can do that you don't necessarily, that you can't practice that. Right. It just happens. And the only practice that you have is constantly playing. With the same group, with different people, doesn't matter. If you're playing and, you can learn to play by music, and if you did, you'd be playing that exact song.
I think that's different with me. Yeah. I don't necessarily, well, first of all, being drummer that I am, I didn't come up practicing. Okay. I didn't come up knowing how to smack a snare or how to crash a cymbal. I didn't know how to do any of that when I first came up. Actually, when I first came to this church, it was another drummer that was in here, and they were drumming every service, and it felt very like too much for them. So I decided to step in and say, hey, I'll take one of the services, even though I didn't know how to play.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I didn't know how to play the drums, but I took one of those services and I said, hey, how hard could it be to play the drums?
Yeah.
Little did I know I was getting into something, but I got in there. I started playing.
Sure.
I played the Sunday night services because the Sunday morning services was more packed up, and
Yeah.
you know, you didn't want to mess up the morning services with
Right.
the song. But
Yeah.
I picked the Sunday night services. I played those, and you know, little by little, I started getting more into it, and you know, the picking it up was very, very hard because it was a lot of different limbs that you had to move at different times.
Sure.
You had to move your right hand and your left leg and your right leg and your left hand all different times, and it was just like, how do you do this? You have to be an octopus to be able to play different things and make it sound like it's supposed to be music.
I need 4 brains.
Yeah, you need to have 4 brains. Each one of these limbs you have 4
exactly.
brains. But that's the thing, is I didn't come up with practice. I did it every service. But every service, you know, I was just like asking, hey, pray for me that the Lord will give me the ability to play the drums.
Yeah.
It didn't come out right away. It took me a little while.
Sure.
But you know, it's the matter of, you know, I depended on the Lord to be able to give me that ability and to play that. And now look at me here. I'm playing the drums, and you wouldn't be able to tell if I was playing for 10, 12 years. I haven't been, but you know, it's something that the Lord has to give you that ability, and when you have that ability, you know it's anointed. That's anointed.
Well, and you started it by faith, you know, not knowing how to play, not knowing what to do, and just kind of like, well, here's a problem, you know, that I see is that we only have one drummer, and he feels like he's being overworked in this.
Exactly.
And I don't know what I'm doing, but that's sometimes the best place to start.
Well, I was in music before.
Sure. Yes, agree.
I was in music before
so
church.
So you
I had some kind of knowledge.
What did you play? And you played.
I played trumpet in high school.
Yeah.
I was actually what happened was I was in middle school in 6th grade, and when 7th grade came, I saw my schedule, and band was on my schedule. I went to Mom and said, Mom, I don't want to be a band nerd. I told my mom that, and I said, I don't want to be in band.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and she said, Jose, do you know that your family has a bunch of band musicians in it? And I said, no. You know your father played the trumpet? I said, I didn't know that. You know your uncle played the trumpet? I didn't know that. You know your cousin played the trumpet? I didn't know that. So you know what I naturally went to? I went to the trumpet.
Sure.
You know, I went to go and I said, hey, I'm going to give it a shot.
Right.
I'm gonna go into go in the band, get the little orientation going on.
Yeah.
I picked the trumpet up and played it, and I was a natural.
Sure.
They said I was a natural. I tried every other instrument. I tried the drums, which I didn't get a good score for. I tried the saxophone, which I also did not get a good sound out of. But the trumpet was the only one I got a good sound out of, and I played that. I played that from 7th grade all the way to 12th grade. And in between there, that's when I was playing drums here.
Yeah, and you happen to, you know, because no matter what instrument you play, then learning how to think musically is a huge deal. And, you know, I happen to grow up in a very musical family, but when it comes down to it, as far as, you know, experience goes, even though you're playing trumpet at that point, the musical knowledge from your band director. I mean, I went to the same band he did, you know, later down the road, but the band director is John Ekman at Bartow High School.
Hey, John Ekman.
Yeah, if he's watching this, it's awesome. He's absolutely one of the best band teachers I've ever seen. He has his own method to how to solve problems, how to think musically, and he's nailed it for, I mean, years and years. How many things did you win? I mean, just, you know, the things that you went to, the opportunities you had in that band.
Oh my goodness, we were like one of the best bands in the state. Like we went to state twice in my years, and we didn't win, but we did go to state. To be able to get to state is a huge accomplishment in that band, and I was proud to be part of that band that got to get there. And that band, you get you know, marching and all that kind of different things. You know, we don't believe in football games and here, but those different opportunities helped advance my knowledge and skill in the field. Mr. Ekman's knowledge in music as well is something that helped me advance.
Well, and you know, even as a trumpet player, if you're consistently playing out of time or always dragging behind or playing in the wrong time signature, whatever it is, you won't last very long.
Mm-mm,
Or
no.
you know, something will have to change. And so even then, not as a drummer, having to know this is how to stay in time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is how to play within the section. Because I will say trumpet is one of the most difficult instruments to, you know, balance because of how naturally high it is. And it's an instrument that you always, to play high notes, have to play loudly.
Mm-hmm.
But to balance that within, as me playing tuba, I was kind of the opposite, where I didn't have to worry about playing too loud. I was trying to, you know, balance everybody else out.
Right. Not drown them out.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what you have to do to play well. Sometimes you have to get louder, and, you know, sometimes there's times you have to draw back. But it's about listening and knowing when to play soft.
It's about being a blend. You
Yes.
know, it's Mr. Ekman. If John Ekman he's watching, if he's watching,
Sure.
he's a in his band. He's really particular about blending in.
Yeah.
If you're playing a little bit too loud and you can hear you, hey,
Right.
blend into the band.
Yes.
Don't try to stand out. Unless you're in a solo, which is what you want to do. You want to stand out a bit in a solo. But when you're in a band, you want to make sure everything is together musically. If you try to pick a track out and you try to listen to your instrument, it should be as an instrument. If you're a trumpet player, you should be able to hear your trumpet. But as a regular person listening to that, you can't pick out just any random instrument unless it's a drum.
Right.
You know, but it should all blend in. And it should all be one sound.
Sure. And I mean, there's so much musical knowledge that didn't necessarily, you know, I mean, you're not continually playing trumpet now and needing all the trumpet information you learn, but just as, you know, as a musician, because that's what he really wants. And when that's the biggest thing that I remember from my time at Bartow High School doing band, is that we were professionals. That was the standard. It was professionalism. This was at the highest level you could get at that age,
Mm-hmm.
where you're going to these places, you're dressing up nice,
Right.
you're there to perform. That's what you do.
You're a model. You're a model act.
You're a model to other people.
Right.
That you're not, you know, laughing while the performance is going on. You're not cutting her up or playing around.
Yeah.
It's a professional thing where you're a musician, and that's what you're there to do. And that, you know, teaching you how to be a musician and how to listen to the other sections, because sometimes people get very tunnel vision and listen to their own parts or inside the brass or whatever. But listening to the whole group and trying to hear something that you haven't heard in the song to play to that is something that translates no matter what size group you're in.
Right.
We're here. We don't have a full brass section. We don't have all of the woodwinds or whatever. We have Lainey, but, you know, it's just different.
She's the brass section.
Yeah, so that's a solo a lot of times, or, you know, more kind of solo act sound. But as far as, you know, being in the rhythm section, so much is done by listening. I mean, where would we be if we couldn't hear the piano? We don't know. I don't know where the chords are. You don't know where the timing is. You don't know what to accent, what to accentuate when she's playing. You know, there's things that you do from listening.
Mm-hmm.
And just, you know, and not consciously practicing,
Right.
but just constantly playing with somebody and saying, this is what they do. This is how they play. You know, there's chords that I know Mom's going to go to. And if I get it wrong, I know how to move to a different one.
I think that's also another thing is you know who you're playing with.
Yes.
I've played the drums with somebody else in another church or whatever.
Yeah.
And playing with them is like, you know, it's playing here. I know how to play with the people I play with. I can read their emotions. I can read their musicality. I know where they're going. Yeah. But in another church, you don't have that because you don't know them and their play structure. You don't have that knowledge. So when they go into different keys, you're just like, well, I don't know exactly which way they're going, and then I end up playing a chorus, you know, ride, and next thing you know, I'm just like, wait a minute, they're in a verse ride. I'll go ahead and go back, and then you just messed up, and, you know.
Yeah, and the thing is I think a lot of times musicians are, you know, are harsher on themselves than they need to be. You know, because they hear the mistakes and no one else really knows.
I think that's a big drummer thing too.
Oh yeah, because I hear things that I, you know, as somebody who doesn't, you know, who plays bass but has played drums, I hear things that like, you know, it's a little
we get stuck in a trap. We get stuck in a trap of, hey, you're a great drummer, and then they say, no, you're a great drummer, and you're like, no, I'm not a great drummer.
No. Yeah,
I've seen you, and you just did that, like you just said earlier in the thing, where you said you just did a really nice feel, and I can't even get that out.
Yeah,
He said, but then they come to you and say, I heard you while you were playing in the church, and you did something I couldn't do.
Sure.
We're hard on ourselves. We feel like we're not good enough.
You hear the
We
imperfections.
hear someone else, and we think they're better.
Yeah.
It's true. It's a big musician.
It's something that I've struggled with as far as, not being directly prideful, because I really try to keep myself out of that. But just, those little thoughts of just like, I'm better than him. I can do this.
I don't think we should have that.
I don't think we should either. When I was at this youth camp where I heard those people, there were people up there, the bass player brother Chad Justice, probably the best I've heard. He could sing well. He was up there, pulled a mic stand up, started singing just as well as he was playing bass while playing. I mean, it was incredible. There was stuff there, you're like, whoa, he's playing these cool chords. He would just stop playing. He would just stop. And the drums are going, piano's going. He just stopped. You're like, what's going to happen? And he hit something and just like these open chords and just make the whole place just feel like it's all open and reverberating. It was amazing. I could not in any wise say that I was even close to his playing ability. And then somebody else would get up there that is, closer to me. We played different styles. And I was just like, oh. And at that point, I was, and I've said this on our services, but I got changed a whole lot spiritually by that youth camp. And by the end of the week, I realized that was part of it I had to let go, because that's not my ability. I mean, you talk about learning to play, but the truth is and you and me both have said this, I think, at different points, it's hard to teach somebody how to play because we don't know. I know kind of how to teach somebody, but I didn't do it myself.
Exactly where I'm coming from as well.
I taught myself how to play. When I first started playing bass, I had a giant blister on the side of my thumb because I thought you had to pluck it like this. And it turns out you can play it finger style. And that stuff can come later on, but I just didn't know technique. And that's what you were saying too, is you don't know how to hit the snare, cymbals. There's a lot of technique that sometimes teaching yourself you miss out on.
I think I did a lot of self-learning.
Yes.
I did a lot of YouTube learning. I did a lot of just watching a lot of different artists, different drummers play.
Yeah.
And that's where I got my talent, I guess.
Yes.
And it's and talent is a hard word because I feel like it's an anointing rather than a talent. That's where I feel like the line is right there. It's an anointing versus a talent.
Sure.
Because
if
you try to get me to play the drums without the anointing of God being on me, I sound like a wreck. I sound like a train wreck.
Sure.
I couldn't give you a good beat. Right. But if the Lord was moving and the music was playing and and the Lord was, in this presence, I feel like my playing ability goes 10 times because I feel God. I feel God on me.
That's a huge thing about being in church services. And then when it gets good, you start, there's things that all of a sudden the imperfections don't matter.
Yeah, you don't even hear them.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You can miss a cymbal and you don't just.
I dropped the stick one time playing the drums, and I go out there and after the song service, and I'm shaking my head, and they saying, "What's wrong, brother?" And I said, "I dropped my sticks," and they said, "We couldn't even tell."
Yeah, I know.
It's like, how did you
don't know? You just don't know because
the Lord was there and providing. He probably smacked that drum for you while you were trying to pick that snare up.
And when you feel the anointing, other people feel it, and sometimes that gets you in a little trap of, "Oh, I did that." I've gotten stuck in that where you play some cool, like you start playing the different beat, and then somebody starts really praising the Lord, and you're like, "Oh, maybe that was me." No, it's just you are being used, and that's when I at that youth camp realized. I didn't give myself this playing ability. There's a lot of things that I think that I am not good at.
Right.
But, when the anointing's on it, it's not about me. And so
no, it's not.
In the middle of a service, we're playing, it's choirs happening, and the guy who's playing bass, consistent, in practice, he was there. It wasn't a service, starts going. It was always tight, and he just all of a sudden throws something in there that you're like, wow. And I just looked over in the middle of the song, so it just goes, "You're better than me." And the look on his face was crazy. He was shocked.
I'll tell you one.
I had to say it, I had to say that for myself. That wasn't for him.
Yeah.
It was, but it was for me because I had to say, listen, I want to be below you, and I want to learn how to get to that because I started playing and played way over the top. And I'm sorry to talk so much about bass and drum lesson, but
okay.
But
I don't think it's the drum lesson.
Yeah, it's just we're talking about our experiences playing music.